You may be seated. Two very quick things. One thing which Ozzy didn't mention this morning. I guess an oversight. I don't know. He's hanging his hat next week. So we should. You're right. Okay, so that is true. I did say that. Which was the other thing, the evangelistic outreach, and that is next Saturday, the 25th. Right? 25th? Is that next Saturday? 25th, yes. Okay, sometimes my weeks flow from one to the other. Okay, so that's what's happening. We're not doing anything. Children's Day is May the 5th. What day is that? Very good. Is it a Monday or a Tuesday or? It's a Thursday? Tuesday? It's a Tuesday. All right. Normally everybody is off on Children's Day. I know that Americans are not off, but all the Koreans are off and the kids are off. So if it was going to be on a regular church day, I thought maybe we could have like something for the kids, but we'll skip that. And then Mother's Day on May the 10th. Is that right? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. All right. And the rest of them you can read on your own, but those are the ones that are coming up soon. Korean Parents' Day is on the 8th. Oh, that's not on my calendar. We can't have it. It's not on my calendar. It can't happen. It's not how it works. Okay. Anyway, so that's the upcoming events. I don't think any of those happen on a church day, do they? Okay, so the 5th is a Tuesday. Wednesday's a 6th. 7, 8, 9. Oh, wait, Mother's Day is on a Sunday. Is that right? I'm beginning to really dislike you people. All right. Okay, so May the 10th, it's on a Sunday, so we got to make sure we buy flowers and stuff for moms. Okay. All right, that's all I got. So, with that, let's have another song. And then today we're going to do some Bible trivia questions. So, put on your thinking caps. Black Book 474. Decided to come back and join us. How was the honeymoon? Was it good? Have a good time? Good. Congratulations. How does it feel being married for a week? More responsibilities? Yeah, now you got a baby. Yeah. Every wife gets that joke. Every wife gets that joke. All right, so Bible trivia question. I'm going to ask the question, and the first person to give the correct answer can choose one song out of either songbook, and we'll sing one stanza of the song of their choice. Is everybody ready? It's open Bible too, by the way, so you don't have to go, I know where it's at, but I can't remember. You'll know. So the first question is, what was the second miracle that Jesus did when he came out of Judea? Not the first, but the second. What was the second miracle that Jesus did when he came out? Go. What was the second miracle that Jesus did when he came out of Judea into Galilee? The second miracle. He did? He probably did that, but that's not the answer. I'm sorry, you're out. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Okay, guys, don't guess. Please don't. We'll never get to sing if everybody keeps guessing. No, I'm just asking the question, and the answer is in the verse, okay? It's a simple question. What was the second miracle that Jesus did when he came out of Judea into Galilee? Simple question. Simple answer. See, every time you guys guess wrong, it makes me question my notes. What was the second miracle that Jesus did when he came out of Judea into Galilee? I'm sorry, you're out. How many people are out now? 2? 3? 3. Who's the third one? Ah, she is, yeah.
He cured a son of an old man.
Yes. John chapter 4, verses 46 through 54 specifically says it was the second miracle that Jesus did when he came out of Judea into Galilee. All right? It's right there. All right, what song?
What's the song? 502.
502 in the Brown Book. 502. Yes. I think it is. .502 in the Brown Book. And can it be that I should gain an interest in the Savior's blood? Died he for me who caused his pain, for me who him to death pursued. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? All right, next question. Who won that? No, who got that? That was Benjamin. Okay. All right. Which tribe of Israel was the Apostle Paul from? Benjamin. Okay. What song? Benjamin almost answered. What number? 574 in the Brown Book?
You can try it that one, but that sounds really weird that you played that part.
574 in the Black Book. Obeg Chushib Sa. Apart from God, a slave to sin, my guilt too much to bear. My heart has found no hope within, and peace gives way to care. Yet now I see your broken form upon dark Calvary. It was my fault that you were torn. You proved your love for me. Now I am yours and you are mine. Oh, precious thought to me. The priceless gift of love divine provides a want to point out the obvious, but if you guys don't get this one, guess who's singing? They got two already. You know, okay, I guess you don't care. All right. Who hid prophets in a cave and fed them with bread and water?
Last week we covered this in Sunday school, saying.
Who hid prophets in a cave and fed them with bread and water? No, you're out. What? The question, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, who hid prophets in a cave and fed them with bread and water? No, that's wrong. I'm sorry, you're out. Who hid prophets in a cave and fed them with bread and water? It was in last week's Sunday school. Don't you feel good about this? So good. That's the way I feel when people walk up and say, Pastor, what about this? And I'm like, I just preached on it 2 weeks ago. "30 seconds.
Really concerning because the goal verse by verse just need to have been here this morning and gone one chapter.
See, now what? What are you doing?
I'm getting frustrated because I've been preaching.
What are you? Who hid prophets in a cave and fed them with bread and water? 15 seconds. Actually 5, but I'm just being nice. Yes, who said that? Obadiah. Obadiah, Ahab's governor. Okay, what's on?
Third verse of 502.
502, third verse. Long my imprisoned spirit lay. Hold on a minute. We're still looking. 502, third verse. Yeah. I looked out and there's about 3 or 4 people looking in the wrong book, and I was like, maybe we should start again. Okay, let's try it again. Long my imprisoned spirit lay, fast bound in sin and nature's night. Thine eye diffused a quickening ray. I woke, the dungeon flamed with light. My chains fell off and my heart was free. I rose, went forth and followed thee. Amazing love, how can it be that thou, my God, shouldst die for me? So this side's already got 3, right? So this side has 0, so we know who's singing up here. Just for fun, how many kings went with Ben-Hadad when he besieged Samaria? Ben-Hadad, yes. How many kings went with Ben-Hadad when he besieged Samaria? You know how in the Old Testament you have certain books are like 1st and 2nd, 1st and 2nd. So you have 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. It's in one of those. So I've given you 6 books to choose from. How many kings went with Ben-Hadad when he besieged Samaria? I'll even tell you which chapter. It's chapter 20. How many kings went with Ben-Hadad when he besieged Samaria? Very good. All right. What song? It's 1 Kings chapter 20 and verse 1. In the garden, I come to the garden. What number is that? That's what he said, in the garden. What is it? Brown Book 271. Yeah, let's make sure we sing this, because James was singing it all day yesterday. No, not all day, just part of the day. 271 in the Brown Book. Brown Book. Yeah, we did. I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. Last question. Here we go. This one should be easy, I hope. Who esteemed the words of God to be of greater value than his necessary food? Go, go, go. Who esteemed the words of God to be of greater value than his necessary food? I'll give you a hint. He didn't actually have a written word of God. Yes. Joe, very good. Okay. Where? Black Book 481. Well, the problem is it's still 3-2. It's kind of a problem. What a privilege to come into God's presence, just to linger with the one who set me free. As I lift my eyes and see his awesome glory, I remember who he is and bow, oh bow the knee, bow the knee, bow the knee, bow the knee, bow the knee. He is King of all the ages, bow the knee. God alone on his throne, high and lifted up and bow the knee. Kneel before him, all adore him, as you live to love him more, bow the knee. Big finish. Bow the knee, bow the knee, bow the knee, bow the knee. He is King of all the ages, bow the knee. God alone on his throne, see him high and lifted up and bow the knee. before Him, all adore Him. As I live to love Him more, bow the knee, bow the knee, bow the knee. Okay, you guys, Brown Book 224.
This is our solo up here.
Yeah. No, there was no protest when we started, okay?
I got protest.
Verse 4. No, there is no verse 4. All right, take your Bibles and turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. We're still proceeding on. I want to kind of go back and read verses 25 through 28 so we can kind of have a bit of a context of where we're at. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 25 through 28. It says, whatsoever is sold in the shambles, that eat, asking no question for conscience sake. Does anybody remember what the shambles were? Right, it's a market. So they would take the meat that was used in idolatry, and then they would sell it at a discount price in the market. And Christians would buy that because it was cheaper. And there were problems with that. People said, you bought that in shambles, you shouldn't eat that. It was used for idolatry, for example. And then verse 26, for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. If any of them that believe not bid you to a feast, and ye be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no question for conscience sake. But if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not for his sake that showed it, and for conscience sake, for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So you've got that repeat of the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So I wanted to read that because I wanted to make sure that we're thinking along the same lines. This is telling the believer to eat with unbelievers, but not to ask where the meat came from for conscience sake. For their conscience and for yours, if maybe it would bother you to know something like that. So first of all, it was meat. It wasn't. We're not talking about alcohol or something that the Bible would forbid us to do. It's talking about meat. And then secondly, it was most likely unclean meat because it's related to idolatry. Now, there are a number of New Testament passages that make it clear God has changed the dietary law for man. Now, just because we need to be aware of that, I'll give you the passages, and we will just take turns reading those. We'll start in the back. You take Matthew 15:11, and then Brother Kyung-Soo, you take Romans 14:14, and then Brother Willie, I'm going to pick on you because it's 3 verses, okay? 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. So we'll read those. First, Matthew 15:11. What does it say? So in other words, how is a man defiled? Is he defiled by food? How is he defiled? How are we defiled? What defiles us? Okay, so it's not what goes in, but what comes out. So there's the principle there that whatever you eat or whatever you drink doesn't defile you. It's what comes out of you. And then Romans 14:14. Okay, so if, for example, if you have a problem eating pork, because you read in the Old Testament law and it said don't eat pork, if you've got a problem eating pork, if you feel like if you eat pork that would be a sin for you, don't eat pork. Don't defile your conscience. It's not an important enough issue to do that to yourself over. And then 1 Timothy chapter 4, verses 1 through 3.
That in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from meats which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe in the truth.
I suppose you could make a case for those that say maybe you should be vegetarian, commanding to abstain from meats. But I also would like to, point out that the only Old Testament law concerning the diet that is reflected in the New Testament is that we shouldn't be eating blood. That's spoken in the Old Testament. It's also spoken in the New Testament. Now, if you go out to dinner with me and you want to eat blood, go ahead, okay? I don't think it's right, but I'm not going to eat it. I don't do blood. It's gross, okay? At the same time, if you don't feel that way, I'm going to say, well, yeah, I'm not so sure that's a good thing to do, maybe. But I'm just not going to do it because it's repeated in the Old Testament and the New Testament. But other than that, I don't know of any New Testament hindrance for diet. So if you like pork, go ahead. However, you need to put yourself back in the first century. The Christians in the first century, they're beginning to deal with issues that they've never dealt with before. And the apostles are having to give guidance on things that they never really thought about before. Nobody ever really thought about whether or not they should eat, a ham sandwich before. So now we have some guidance for that. Verse 26 says, "For the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof." And again, don't miss the point. It's okay to eat what's sold in the shambles because whatever it is, it belongs to God anyway. The devil doesn't own anything. So the statement's a pretty powerful truth. Everything belongs to God, and we need to get that because it'll change your whole perspective on your assets. I saw an awesome car yesterday. Actually, two of them. The one I liked, though, was white. It was a Ferrari. I liked it. Maybe even carnally so, to be honest. It looked nice. But, if I had a Ferrari, it wouldn't really, if I'm thinking biblically, it wouldn't be mine. It would be the Lord's. Now, how can I use a Ferrari for the Lord? I don't know, get to church faster maybe? I don't know. But something. But the point is that what we have doesn't belong to us. It belongs to God. And so we need to get that thought across. It's not mine. It belongs to God, and He wants to use it, and so we need to give it, or at least be willing to give it, whatever it is. We are merely stewards of God's stuff. We're supposed to be good stewards of God's stuff. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2. Hyunji, can you read that? 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2. So what kind of steward are we to be? Good stewards. To be faithful with the things that God has given us. And that's the kind of perspective, for lack of better terms, that we have to have concerning everything that we own. Everything. All the way down to your socks. Even those belong to God. I don't know why God would want my socks, but they belong to Him. Okay? And that's the way we have to view it. Now let's read verse 27. Let's read that together. If any of them, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 27. I know I lost about half of you, so we'll start back. 1 Corinthians 10:27. if any of them that believe not bid you to a feast, and ye be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no question for conscience sake. So, when Paul taught about separation, this is a question. When Paul taught about separation, did he mean that we should completely sever all relationships with the lost? Hello? Yeah. When Paul taught about separation, did he mean that we should be completely separate or sever all relationships with the lost? No. So we have relationships with the lost. We're just careful what type of relationship that is, right? Did Jesus refuse to go to the marriage feast at Cana? No, of course not. Did he not also sit at the table of Simon the Pharisee? Of course he did. So there is a difference that we need to understand that's between isolation and separation. We are to be separated, but we're not to be isolated. God's word never says to be isolated. So Paul didn't mean that we shouldn't eat with those who are lost. He's emphasizing that we should act in a certain way if we do. But again, the main point is, if a believer in Paul's day went to dinner with an unbeliever, there's a really good chance that the unbeliever will serve something used that had been used in idolatrous ceremonies. And you wouldn't really need to ask in those days. Just like today, if you walk in here and you're carrying cookies, you know, we have church and everybody goes to, you know, whatever, and they come back. And you got cookies. Where would you assume those cookies came from? You don't know. I mean, they could have bought them and sold 3 weeks ago and brought them back or whatever. But where would you assume that they came from? Some store. Okay, any place nearby that you might buy cookies? E-Mart, where it's common practice, and we know this, that a lot of people go over to E-Mart and get junk food. We know that. So if you came in with ice cream or cookies or a Coke or whatever, somebody is probably going to assume that you got that in E-Mart, but they don't know for sure. Now, going back to the first century, if an unbeliever in this area invites you out to eat, and they have meat there, you will probably be able to assume there's a good chance they bought that in the shambles, but you don't really know for sure. So what does Paul say? He says, go to dinner, but don't ask where the meat came from. I do that a lot in Korea. I don't ask questions about things because sometimes I don't like the answer, okay? Now, I'm the kind of guy, I'm the kind of guy that I don't eat something until I know what it is. I got to know what it is. And once you tell me, it doesn't matter how good it is. If I don't like it, I'm not going to eat it no matter what it is. It may be very delicious, but once you tell me if I don't like that thing, I'm not going to eat it. That's just the way. And I've noticed that, you know, in America, typically speaking, a lot of Americans will go, what is it? And then eat it. In Korea, they go, what is it? You know, there's a little different way of looking at things. I get that. But don't ask, all right? Don't ask. In the first century, Paul says, go to dinner, but don't ask. Why not? Because the knowledge that something was used in a pagan ceremony would enrage your conscience. Now you're eating meat going, oh, but they give this to they sacrifice this to an idol, and it would bother you. And so rather than have that, he says, don't ask. Now we're going to see in the next few verses, this is not so much a conscience issue with the believer, but more of a conscience issue for the unbeliever. Does everybody follow me? Because that's what his point is. Verses 28 and 29. Let's read those two together and then we'll come back and look at them separately. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 28 and 29. But if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not for his sake that showed it, and for conscience sake, for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Conscience, I say, not thine own, but of the other. For why is my liberty judged of another man's conscience? I can't really think of an example, but maybe you can. Can you think of something that you believe is okay, something that you believe is right, but you know that other people might think that it's not right, and so therefore you don't really flaunt that before them? Maybe you like to eat blood. Now, I already told you I believe that it's wrong. I think I can show you some verses in the Bible that drive why I believe that way. Other people don't believe that way. I can't, and they have good arguments. Some of them have very good arguments for why they feel that way. But if I invite you out to dinner, should I give you blood to eat? No, because I know that maybe, you well, that would gross me out. But, some people don't believe that. So you have to be careful. What we're dealing with is not a principle that says, okay, if they're sinning, it's okay for you to sin because they're sinning and you're with them. It's not that. It's the idea of you doing something or not doing something that is neither right nor wrong simply because the other guy might think it's wrong. In America, there's still some churches. I could take you to some places in Hampton, Virginia, where the pastors still preach against going to movie theaters. They still preach against playing cards. It doesn't matter. They could be Uno cards or whatever. They still preach against that. And if you talk to them, they'll say, yes, it's identification with a lifestyle. Don't play cards. It's identification with a lifestyle because everybody plays poker. And I'm thinking to myself, I grew up playing cards. My family, we played spades all the time. We didn't gamble. There was no money. The only thing you got out of it was the opportunity to laugh at your brothers and sisters when you won. And so, to me, that's never an issue. But to some people it is. So if I know that it's an issue with someone else, I don't invite them to my next card game. You see what I'm saying? Now, I don't actually play cards anymore, but just for an example, you need to be sensitive to that. Verse 28, let's read that again. But if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols. Oh boy. Now he's told you that. Why did he tell you that? Why did this man say to you, you went out to dinner with him, you sit down at the table and he looks at you and he says, now, just so you know, this has been offered in sacrifice to idols. Why would he tell you that?
He probably really should know that if you're a Christian, you should have a problem with something sacrificed to some idol.
Right, so he probably thinks,
He might be respecting your faith.
yes, he probably thinks that you have a problem with idolatry, and you probably should have a problem with idolatry, even though you don't have a problem with the meat. But he's thinking, oh, if he knew that came from an idol, he wouldn't eat it. So therefore, I should tell him, I should warn him. I said before that we've got some Indian kids in our school, and Indian parents, that we associate with, and sometimes if we're going out to eat or something like that, and there is meat in it. Now, I don't think it's wrong. Eat it, tear it up, eat that pork, eat that beef, whatever. If you're a cow and you happen to pass by, I'm sorry for you. That's but that's not their view. So I tell them, hey, you need to know that that's made with beef broth before you eat it. Because I don't want them to go away saying, oh man, finding out later, that was made out of beef broth. How come he did that to me? And then suddenly there's an issue. So the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. But if any man say unto you, this is offered in sacrifice unto idols, eat not for his sake that showed it, and for conscience sake, for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So verse 26, the point was there's nothing wrong with eating what God has given to man through creation. After all, God created everything and he made it good. In verse 28, it's now reiterated that we must maintain a balance between freedom and responsibility. Yes, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. I don't know if you've ever felt this way. I know I have. Being a Christian for 42 years, you have to know that there have been times when I felt like, I don't care what he thinks about this. It doesn't matter. I don't think it's wrong. Maybe it's not wrong. It's not wrong, but in front of the other guy, you don't do it. For conscience sake and for their sake. So, it's not wrong to eat in ignorance of the meat's past usage, if that makes sense to you. Nor is it wrong to reject something that you have full knowledge about. Neither action that you take is a sin. You can do either one. As you know, I have a certain distaste for what? What do I don't eat? Fish. I use it as an example all the time. I don't like fish. I've been in situations where people have tried to trick me into eating fish. It didn't work well. Fish is fish. I can taste it. But I hate fish. I'm not going to eat fish. I despise fish no matter what. So if you offer me fish, I'm not going to eat it. Now, some people, and I've said this also about eating dog, because we live in a country where years ago in the culture they ate dog. I don't personally eat dog. Why? I don't need to. There's plenty of chickens and plenty of pigs and plenty of cows, so I don't really need to. But if you want to, I don't care. I put that in the same category as fish. But it's not a sin. It's not a sin to do it. It's not a sin not to do it. Now, if you eat blue, my wife may think that's a sin. I may not. Okay, so if that's your thing, help yourself. Anyway, it's not wrong to take one action. It's not wrong to take the other. So if either action is not wrong, you should consider, what does the other person think? Because your testimony is worth a lot more than a steak. The bottom line is that all of your actions have to take into account the conscience of others and what they think. Read verse 29. Conscience, I say, not thine own, but of the other. For why is my brother judged of another man's conscience? So this might be a good idea or a good place to remind ourselves exactly what a conscience is. Now, man is a tripartite being. Does anybody know what that means? 3 parts. What are the 3 parts to man? Body, soul, and spirit. 1 Thessalonians 5:23. Okay, body, soul, and spirit were 3 parts. None of those 3 parts say conscience. But now we hear about the conscience. So what exactly is a conscience? I came to that question a while back, many whiles back. And so I kind of took a look at it. I studied it out. And this is what I came to. So I'm just going to share with you my thoughts on what a conscience is. So first of all, the conscience is a God-given ability that helps you examine your motives and actions. Paul said he worked to maintain a good conscience. I'm going to give out some more verses. Acts 24, verse 16. Suk, you read that. Acts 24, 16. And then, Brother Tim, you take Romans chapter 2, verses 14 and 15. And then, Kayla, you take Romans chapter 9, verse 1. Okay? I'm sorry? Acts 24, verse 16. You want to borrow my glasses? All right, so Paul said he worked to maintain a good conscience, the way he felt he stood, a God-given ability to help him examine his motives and actions. The second thing I see that I understand the scriptures as far as the conscience is concerned is that the conscience also serves as a witness. In other words, it testifies within a person about what he believes is right or wrong. So Romans 2, verses 14 and 15.
These, having not the law, are a law unto themselves, who show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
And their thoughts believe while accusing or else excusing one another.
Okay. So you've got the law written in your heart, and now your conscience is doing what? What did the verse say your conscience is doing with that? This is kind of a critical point. It's bearing witness. So you've learned something or you know something in your heart, and your conscience bears witness to that thing that you've learned about whether or not what you're doing is right or wrong. And then Romans chapter 9, verse 1. So there it again. Your conscience. So the conscience serves as a witness. It testifies within a person about what he believes is right or wrong. Do I want to do this now or wait until after I'm done? Wait one more. Okay, so third, the conscience operates in accordance with a person's value system. Let me back up to the second point for a minute. No matter where you go in the world, no matter what culture you're in, people know that it's wrong to kill somebody. They know that. That you don't actually need a book to tell you that. People know that. So if you kill somebody, that thing that you already know, your conscience says you shouldn't have done that. I was wrong. Okay? But now there's another aspect to the conscience in that the conscience operates in accordance with a person's value system. In other words, the conscience itself doesn't determine what is true. It takes what you think is true or what you've learned is true, and it seeks to apply that. So the conscience is really, it's kind of the mind's job. Once a person is convinced that something is true or false, right or wrong, the conscience urges him to live accordingly. In other words, let's say that, I'll use the Hindus again. Let's say that a Hindu has learned through his religion that eating beef is wrong. So if a Hindu eats beef, even though we know that it's not a sin, if they eat beef, they feel like they have sinned because their conscience tells them that that is wrong. He's been taught it's wrong, so his conscience is troubled when he breaks that rule. We see that a lot in America, especially with Catholics. I'm not really sure why, but we used to have a special day at school. It was called Fish Friday. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Why is it Fish Friday? You had a Fish Friday?
Yeah, some of Catholics.
Okay, so why? I mean, were you supposed to eat fish on Friday or not eat fish on Friday? Which was it? You're supposed to eat fish on... Why? Yeah, because I'm supposed to. Well, what would happen if you learned that you were supposed to eat fish on Friday and then you didn't eat fish on Friday? Man, I should have ate fish. And you start feeling bad about it because your conscience said it was wrong. That's what the conscience does. It is, the conscience applies what you believe to be right or wrong. And then fourth, the conscience is an inner voice, not an actual voice. You know, hello, don't do this, don't do that. It's not like that. It's an inner voice that judges your actions and your motives. So, having said that, the conscience is not perfect. The conscience can be seared. 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2. And Stephen, can you read that? 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2. Yeah. And then Ellie, do you want to read one? I never asked you to read before. I'm afraid that you're going to get mad at me and throw your phone or something. You can read it in Russian? Okay, you do that. Read it in Russian. We'll follow in English. It's Titus chapter 1, verse 15. Okay? And you are 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2. If you read it in Russian, I will be impressed.
Again, what is mine?
Yours is Titus chapter 1, verse 15. Okay, there we go. 1 Timothy 4, 2, yes.
Speaking lies and hypocrisy, having your conscience seared with the hot iron.
What that's talking about is getting to the point where something that should bother your conscience doesn't bother your conscience anymore. Probably most of us, if not all of us, have had that experience where you did something that wasn't right and it bothered you a lot. But then later you did it again. It still bothered you, but maybe not as much as it did the first time. Then you did it again, and now it bothers you just a little bit. Then you did it again, and at some point, if you don't deal with it correctly, you get to the point where it doesn't bother you anymore, and you just do it because you have seared your conscience. Now, Titus 1:15. Thank you. That was extremely helpful to me. I'm going to need somebody to read that in English. Somebody read that in English because I can't remember what it says.
Unto the pure,
Oh, there we go, yeah.
pure, but unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure, but even their mind and conscience
Okay.
is defiled.
So the conscience can be seared. The conscience can be defiled. It's important there's two things that are very important. First of all, you learn what the truth is versus learning things that people say are true that might not be true. Because your conscience is going to use that. And then the second thing, not only do you need to learn what the truth is, but you also have to make sure that you keep that, because otherwise you will get to the point where your conscience is defiled. And the verse says, unto the pure all things are pure, unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure, but even their mind and conscience is defiled. So as we learn the difference between right and wrong, our conscience uses that knowledge to help us, to guide us. God gave us a conscience to function as an inner judge of a moral guide. A couple more verses. Brother Du, you read John chapter 8, verse 9. And then, Benjamin, you take Acts 23, verse 1. Okay, somebody tell me, what is the situation? What's going on there? What happened? The woman caught in adultery. And they brought her to Jesus, and people are always like, well, where was the man? Okay, forget that for a minute. You can figure that out on your own. Okay, so they brought her to Jesus.
They want him to say, okay, we need to enact capital punishment, essentially.
Right, because that's what the Old Testament law demanded.
And they want him to say that in front of the crowd that he's been, that's been following.
Okay, so Jesus doesn't actually say that. Instead, he stoops down, and he writes in the sand. And everybody's like, what did he write? What did he write? If we needed to know, he would have told us. But we didn't need to know. I don't know that what he wrote is actually the important point. The important point is what Jesus said. What did he say? Okay, he is among you without sin. Let him cast the first stone. Everybody knows. If you don't know, then you need to spend a little more time in the Word of God. Everybody knows there's nobody without sin. Everybody knows that there's no one that is perfect. So when Jesus said, he that is without sin, let him cast the first stone, who is the only person that is standing there who can actually do that? Jesus. But they did what? They went, that's not me. And they all left, oldest to youngest, because I guess older people have more sin to think about. I don't know. You got more time, you got more sin. So oldest to youngest, and they went out, and then the woman standing there, and Jesus said, where's your accusers? She says, none accuses me. And Jesus said, neither do I accuse you. Go and what? Continue in your sin? No, sin no more, right? So we're not to think that Jesus gave her a free, get out of trouble free card. No, he tells her, go and sin no more. Acts 23:1. Okay, he said that he's lived in good conscience to this day. Was Paul perfect? So what's he talking about? I hate it when everybody gets silent. I know you guys are smart enough to... Usually when I ask questions that I know somebody can answer. So here's the thing. We know that Paul was a sinner. We understand that. But Paul said he lived in good conscience. In other words, to the best of his ability, he's done everything that he believed was right according to what he knew and according to, that what he learned to be right or wrong. So that's what he was trying to do. And he said he lived in good conscience before God. Now, getting back to the verse, what is happening here? The conscience works from what we understand about right and wrong. It follows that the more we learn biblical truth, such as the law of liberty and the law of love, The more useful, let me say it that way, and reliable our conscience will be in guiding us. Getting back to the verse, Paul explains we should not eat something that our dinner host has told us was sacrificed to idols, so as not to offend their conscience. So we've come to understand that to have liberty, it's okay. But to our hosts, they don't have that same knowledge. It's okay to eat it. It's okay not to eat it. It all depends upon not what God's... I want to back up. I want to make sure I'm clear with this because it's very important. If the people you're hanging out with think that it's okay to rob a bank, that doesn't make it okay. We're not talking about things that are obviously sin. If it's obviously sin, it's obviously not okay. No matter what people think about it, whether they agree with it or not, doesn't matter. It's still sin. So we need to understand that right out. Okay, we're not talking about breaking the Ten Commandments because you're hanging out with people that do. We're talking about things that are not expressed, what some people would call gray areas, where people have come to different conclusions on things. And the verse tells you if someone else feels that way, you don't do it. Whether you feel it's right or wrong. It's not wrong to do it. It's not wrong not to do it. So just for their sake, don't do it. So that's the understanding we should have. Our liberty is not a license to go around offending other people or to go around sinning in the name of sharing the gospel. And I don't want to get off on the whole mega church thing or all of that, but a lot of that happens. So in order to maintain an open door of testimony, we need to sacrifice liberty from time to time. I'm already 5 minutes over time, so I'll stop there. Sorry, James. We were supposed to go to 33. I lied. We'll come back to that later, okay? All right. We'll come back next week and go with 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 30, okay? All right. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Okay, Willie, close us in prayer and we'll be dismissed.
Master, we thank you for all that has transpired, Father, getting into your word, delving into your word, and remembering that it is your word. You guide us, Father, to those words. Your Spirit speaks to us as we read, Father, and as we understand. We pray, Father, for further understanding. We pray, Father, that we will be good servants, Lord, knowing your word, knowing your will in our lives. You are our God. We are your servants. Help us to be that good and faithful servant, Father, each and every day. And help us, Father, to remember that one day we will stand before you and give an account. So let us, Father, forget that it is in your word that even our idle words are judged. Help us to remember that, Father, and pray. Please, Father, not over us this day. Guide us in your will.